Imagine a quiet night in the English countryside not so long ago. There, amidst the tranquil rolling hills, a small workshop glows with lamplight. Inside, a woman's hands steadily work a tiny steam engine, one the world will marvel at and the likes of which will never be seen again. This is a story of extraordinary skill and relentless patience, the story of one of the greatest model engineers the world has ever known. Intrigued? Well, good, because this week's Loconori is about this incredible woman and the awe-inspiring locomotive that would be her final project.
Loconori, Loconori, Loconori.
But before we dive into the story of relentless passion, mystery, and tiny machines that breathe history to life, if the magic of miniature steam engines and extraordinary craftsmanship excites you, hit like and share this story with fellow enthusiasts. And please subscribe for more tales like this every week. But make sure you hit the bell to be notified of when the next Loconori drops and all my future videos. Your support keeps the wheels and cogs of this channel on track and steaming forward. Thank you. Now back to the story. Lean in, because what you're about to hear is something special about a remarkable woman, Cherry Hill, and the ice locomotive, the Rurik. Cherry's fascination with precision work began early. Born in Malvern, Worcestershire in 1931, Cherry's father was George Hines, a brilliant engineer who in 1936 started his own business in Worcester, McConnell Hines, manufacturing hop picking machines. The work was all-encompassing and George spent most of his free time in his workshop tinkering on new ideas and projects. And in those very early years, Cherry would watch and learn. With the outbreak of World War II, the family were forced to shut up shop. Machinery was in short supply and was being repurposed, so the government relocated the whole family and all of George's equipment to the Royal Aircraft Establishment in Farnborough. But amidst all the upheaval, Cherry, just 7 years old when war broke out, found a certain kind of reassurance and comfort in immersing herself in her father's work. 1 year later, and the family moved back to Malvern, and there, under her father's patient instruction, Cherry learned early that every tiny detail mattered. Surrounded by her father's workshop tools, including a 1914 Pittler lathe that would remain in use for decades, the young girl absorbed the meticulousness and perseverance needed to craft precision tools. While other children played, she learned the intricacies of lathes, taps, and milling machines. Around the age of 9, Cherry completed her first project, a wooden chest of drawers. At 11, she crafted a scooter, learning how to work with intricate nuts, bolts, and threads. Post-war Britain saw a boom in building models of warships and aircraft, and like many children at that time, Cherry built a model of a Sunderland flying boat. Her attention to detail garnered the attention of the judges in a modelling competition, and she was awarded a special mention for her work. As Cherry grew up, her interest in engineering sharpened. While most young women of her age followed the traditional path of marrying and starting a family, Cherry enrolled at St Andrews University to study for a Bachelor of Science degree in maths. There, to her parents' horror, she bought a second-hand 2-cycle Excelsior motorbike, swapping it later for a 250cc 4-cycle matchless. During vacation time, she built a custom car based on a 1926 Humber. She narrowed the chassis by 8 inches and shortened it by 26 inches, adding Austin 7 axles and wheels. She also built her own hydraulic brakes and used a new type of metal panelling for the bodywork called Duralumin. She registered the car for road use in 1954 and eventually she traded the custom-built car for a 1936 MGTA. She also invented a carburetor balancing device for pairs of SU carburetors. It was called the Krypton Synchro Check and was manufactured by AC Delco. Not all her projects panned out, however. Trying to patent a design for electric scissors, she found that a Frenchman had already built a pair in 1918. And of course those electric scissors can be found in every shop today. Wait a minute. All this is just my way of showing that Cherry was a remarkable woman of her time, following her own passion and purpose and refusing to bend to what society expected of young women in the mid to late 20th century. After graduating from university, it seemed like a natural progression for Cherry to work for the family firm, and so she did. She continued to pursue her modelling work in her spare time. But in 1953, her interests took a notable change in direction. On a chance visit to a model engineering component shop, just for some small items, Cherry spied a Stuart No. 9 steam engine casting kit. This classic horizontal engine was widely regarded as a workhorse of factories and mills, machines that powered industrial Britain. Building the No. 9 was a rite of passage for model engineers. Cherry's eyes lit up. She felt an excitement she'd never felt before. This was a model she wanted, no, needed to make. She bought it and took it home, but with the pressures of work, it wasn't until 1956 that she could finally turn her attention to it and begin. 18 months later, she finished it. The experience was a validation for all her well-honed skills. She was noted to say, "For the first time, I experienced the amazement that I had managed to build an engine that ran." And from that moment, she was hooked. Her finished model later won a bronze medal at the 1964 Model Engineer Exhibition held at the Cora Hotel in London. Over the next few years, Cherry's skills sharpened. She moved beyond ready model kits to crafting engines that were less conventional and more challenging. She chose Victorian traction engines, complex, ornate and historically significant machines, to bring back details that might otherwise be lost forever. The Allchin Royal Chester traction engine was a particular passion project. Suggested by her father, Cherry built this model at the demanding 1/16 scale, despite no available casting kits, forcing her to machine every single part, even the tiny nuts, bolts and screws, from raw metal. She learnt that the original full-size traction engine was located near Tunbridge in southeast England, and that meant she could measure all those important parts, ensuring that her model was totally accurate. Ultimately, it took 7 years to build, and when it was finished, it won a silver medal at that same 1964 exhibition and later was runner-up for the Duke of Edinburgh's award. Over the next decade, Cherry chose more and more obscure engines to model because she was fascinated by the ingenuity of forgotten 19th century engineers. As she once explained, everyone knows about Brunel and Stephenson, but there were many clever minds quietly shaping history. "I'm interested in those and how they thought," she said. As Cherry went on to build ever more complex locomotives, her notoriety grew. In 1968, she was featured on the cover of Model Engineering magazine with 2 of her models, a traction engine and a 1905 self-propelled fire engine. Readers' eyes almost fell out of their heads. A woman, a model engineer. One reader in particular, American model engineer Ivor Hill, went one step further, declaring, "I'm going to marry that girl." And yes, dear readers, she married him. Cherry went on to design and build nearly 20 detailed scale models of steam vehicles during her 60-year modelling career. These mini steam locomotive models took her around 7 years each to make on average, with every nut, bolt and part manufactured in her workshop from scratch. She won 9 Duke of Edinburgh awards, 9 gold medals at the Model Engineer Exhibition, 8 Bradbury Winter Memorial trophies and 3 championship cups, 2 Sir Henry Voice trophies, 2 Aveling Barford Cups, the Krebin Memorial Trophy, and was awarded an MBE, Member of the British Empire, for her services to model engineering. Those accolades were on top of all the silver and bronze medals for the earlier models she built. Her reputation for meticulous modelling grew. She once rebuilt an entire model when she found out it was 1 millimetre out. When it was suggested that no one would notice, she replied, "I would." One project, however, would push her skills to new heights and would become the nearest Cherry came to making a working version of a model railway locomotive. Towards the end of her career, and with her fascination for more obscure locos still going strong, Cherry came across the story of an unusual locomotive. It had everything you might expect of a locomotive: a firebox, a boiler, cylinders, a footplate, a chimney, and tanks full of water slung over the boiler like a saddle, just like a saddle tank. But it had 2 extra distinctive features: skis and spikes. Because the locomotive, the Rurik, ran not on rails on solid ground, but on ice. You could say that it was an early stage snowmobile. In 1860s Russia, roads were scarce and rivers were frozen long into winter. Horses were crippled under heavy sleds through icy, treacherous conditions. Born in Norwich in 1829, Nathaniel Grew was a British engineer notable for his projects around the world. Such was his expertise in designing locomotives for tricky terrains, he was commissioned to build a locomotive that would carry passengers and goods along the River Neva in Russia between St. Petersburg and Kronstadt. He designed the ice locomotive, the Rurik. Built by Nielsen & Co. in Glasgow and finally delivered in 1861, when it arrived, a wooden cabin was added to protect the crew from the harsh winters. Rurik, which is a Norse word for he who rules, was put to work and hauled sled trains on the river for one long winter. But Rurik didn't rule for very long. When spring came and the ice thawed, it was taken out of service. What happened to it after that? That's unclear. On learning the history of the locomotive, Cherry immersed herself in making a 100% accurate working model. The problem was only scarce faded blueprints and fragmentary notes survived, making it near impossible for Cherry to solve this puzzle. Remember, this is an engineer dedicated to making the most precise working models down to the last millimetre. And unlike an earlier model of the Rurik, her model had to work, to run on ice. That meant that tiny skis had to achieve perfect thickness and angle, balancing sturdiness with delicacy to simulate gliding over ice. The steering mechanism had to be a feat of miniature engineering, requiring gears and joints no larger than her fingertip, unlike anything she had built before. Everything was made of steel, and those who got to witness it in the making noted that the valve gear alone was a work of art with its tiny components and unusual layout. Thousands of hours went into perfecting this miniature marvel. But as the hours passed, Cherry's pace slowed. Now in her early 80s, she alluded to her eyesight becoming limited and her hands less nimble. She exhibited her work in progress Rurik at the Model Engineering Exhibition at Brooklands in 2016. But sadly, the Rurik model never got to be completed. Tragically, Cherry passed away in December 2024, aged 93. Her peers and fans around the world mourned her loss. The world had lost a truly unique human being, a woman affectionately dubbed the Fabergé of model engineering. Despite not being complete, Rurik remains a symbol of Cherry's indomitable spirit and legacy, a stunning, unfinished masterpiece telling the story of her vision, talent and relentless pursuit of perfection. Cherry won more model engineering awards than anyone else before or since, and her exquisite functioning models, including the Rurik and numerous Victorian traction engines, are now preserved in the archives of notable organisations, inspiring enthusiasts and historians worldwide. Cherry's models weren't just mere static sculptures, they were fully operational steam machines burning real coal and blowing real steam, each a miniature marvel. To learn more about Cherry, check out the links below this video and don't miss the outstanding book by respected model engineer David Carpenter on her extraordinary legacy. It's called Cherry's Model Engines, the story of the remarkable Cherry Hill. So as you toil away perfecting your own model railways and locos, remember Cherry Hill, the woman whose genius turned tiny engines into living, breathing history. That's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Loconori. Again, please do like, share and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our next Loconori tale and all my future videos. Take care for now. Bye-bye.
Loconori, Loconori.